All of this month, we have been celebrating ministry and the people that make ministry possible here at First United Methodist Church. In the first week, we stopped and we recognized and celebrated the people who are serving here at First United Methodist Church diligently and with passion to be able to continue as a thriving church. Last week, we spent some time discussing and hearing stories about people who are at work in our community, in our city, and around the county, whether that was volunteers for the hospital, Manna House, the Well, Sparrow's Nest. There are lots of people who are acting as the hands and feet of Jesus around Southeast Georgia. This week, we want to pause and recognize the fact that there is more work being done on behalf of the gospel, not only here in Southeast Georgia, but across the nation and throughout the world. First United Methodist Church supports several missionaries who are on call abroad, across the seas, in difficult areas. We also have people who are serving a little bit closer to home with support for the Methodist Children's Home. This week, I want to share a very special story with you from a man who is a familiar face, a good friend, and something that you may not know about him and what he's been up to for the past 15 years. Listen to his story.
So as many people already know, I work for FaithWorks as the Director of Operations and Volunteer Ministries. But in addition to that work, I also travel several times a year out to the Navajo Reservation, representing Tab Smith Ministries, along with a network of nonprofits who serve the Native Americans of the Desert Southwest, specifically the Navajo people. TSM formed about 15 years ago with the idea that we would be a ministry that would provide theological education to those who would otherwise go without. Our thought was that we'd be taking some ministry out to places like Africa and Asia. We had some connections with ministries around the world, and yet God continued to move us in a different direction. So we ended up out on the Navajo Reservation of the Desert Southwest, serving a network of churches, about 14 churches in total now, who do not have access to seminary education. I have the privilege of being a seminary graduate, and to whom much is given, much is expected. And so we take that education out to them, break it down to a level that they can comprehend, because English is their second language. And so we break down theological concepts. We don't dumb them down, we just break them down into about a 5th grade reading level and teach them seminary concepts. So over the last 15 years, of course, education has been our focus. But I think the unexpected greatest benefit that our pastors have experienced through this education program is that our program not only brings them together to learn with one another, but it brings them together so that they can have fellowship with one another and grow together. Before our interaction with these Navajo churches, they all felt kind of siloed, like they were all alone by themselves. They felt very disconnected. We were able to bring them together and not only train them theologically, but to teach them what it really means to be the church. And the church should be the body of believers that are connected not only in our local community, but across the world. And we brought that connection to them, and they have begun to grow their ministries together by relying on one another, learning what it means to really carry each other's burdens as pastors and as Christian workers. Our approach from the very beginning has been different from other experiences they have had with other missionaries. Other missionaries have come in and run the entire program for the indigenous people. But that would mean that for any and every church to have a service like a baptism service or to partake of communion, they would have to wait on the white missionary to show up. And the missionary had over 20 churches in his charge, and so it would take him years to get around to everybody and all their needs, whereas we have come in and empowered them to lead their churches. So these are indigenously led churches under our oversight, but we give them full reign to lead as they see fit, as long as they are within the boundaries of Orthodox Christian faith. I think one of the most impactful moments that I experienced was the ordination of Evelyn Yazzie. She is our district elder on the reservation, which means that she just is the liaison between all of the Navajo pastors and then the network of ministries that help them. So she is our point of contact. And the day she was ordained, she held up her license and said, "After 23 years of serving my congregation, tomorrow, for the first time, I will be able to serve them communion." To see such a small thing, or seemingly small thing, means so much to a pastor. It was a really powerful moment to see that we were indeed empowering them to serve their own people instead of relying so heavily on others to do the work for them.